Fisheries of Gloucester is a two-player game only for two players, and we're gonna fish the fishes, we're gonna preserve them, and we're gonna land on islands. These are the main actions in the game. We perform them for 6 rounds, and at the end of the 6th round, the player with the most points wins the game. The components are super cute, so you see there are different kinds of fish, and then we also have these ships here that we're gonna move on the board. The board is double-sided. On this side there is stuff printed on it, and the other side is blank, and so you're gonna have these tiles so you can experiment with different kinds of setup. And I have to say, the rulebook says, figure it out. I wish the rulebook already came with a couple of scenarios. Maybe they will be released later, so a couple of recommended alternative setups. Then each player also has a personal board where they will place the fish that they collect. You also start with a lobster there, and with an all-important marker that indicates how many hours you have available to perform actions. The idea is that each day you will receive a certain amount of hours. If you're the first player, you will add 6 to whatever was left there from the previous turn, up to 12. And if you're the second player, you will receive 7. And then players will alternate spending hours to perform actions. And if you're out of time and the other player still has time, then they can choose to continue to spend time and perform actions. After you take your turn, once per game, you can spend your lobster to take a second turn in a row, which can be important if there is timing. You want to complete something that you set up before the opponent does it. That could be important. So we're going to collect the fish. We're going to use the fish to then collect these objective cards. Say, for example, I can trade one of this kind to gain this card, which I place in my personal area. It will score me that many points at the end of the game, and it gives me a one-time immediate advantage, such as 2 hours, for example. Or here I discard 4 different kinds of fish, and I also get an advantage, maybe, but definitely I'm gonna get victory points. 2 different kinds of fish. I get to move a boat and place a tile. You'll see what that means. So as you can see, the reward cards for the same category do not necessarily have the same rewards printed on them, and you shuffle them at the beginning of the game, and that's how it works. During the game, we collect fish to collect those cards, and also at the end of the game, we'll score points for landing on these islands. Each symbol that you see on the island is worth a point, and those are going to be the 2 sources of points. Again, cards and islands you land on. Each round will start by either player flipping one of these cards. This deck is also the timer, so when it's over, you know that you played for 6 rounds. And each player will receive the tiles indicated there, so that would be the case. I take those 2 tiles and I add them to my personal pool, in which I may also have tiles from setup, for example, and from previous turns. Then, starting with the first player, the one who just got 6 hours, we're going to alternate taking turns. During your turn, you can take one of these actions indicated in the back of the rulebook. This is your player rate. You can take them in any order as long as you can pay the cost. Some actions do not have cost. For example, charting a course. You take one of your tiles and you place it or toggle adjacent to any ship in play. It doesn't have to be your own. So, for example, that could be my action for the turn. Of course, you're not supposed to cover stuff that is printed on the board. You're not supposed to cover fish. You're not supposed to cover shit. You're supposed to follow the grid. Everything pretty intuitive there. You can choose for your actions to sail, and this time to sail you're gonna spend time. It costs you 1 hour for each space that you sail on. And suppose that actually right now the situation on the board is that. It's going to cost you 1 hour to sail on these dark tiles. You cannot sail on lighter uncharted waters, but you can sail into and through rough waters, it costs you 2 hours. You can also sail through other people's boats, but not stand on top of it because that would be weird. So that's for sailing. Move pretty much anywhere other than these light spaces, empty spaces printed on the board. If you can get there, you can also land on an island, and when you land on an island, then the ship is out of the game. I recommend you put it down this way so you don't forget, and you'll score points at the end of the game. So charting a course, then sailing, then fishing. See, everything is very logical. Now, when you're fishing, you can collect fish that are orthogonally adjacent to your boat, and each will cost you 1 hour. So with the cost of 3 hours, if I have them, I can collect all of those with that ship. It's very hard to set up and pull off something that good, but it may happen. And so then you add these to your personal board. And then preserving fish, that's another action that doesn't cost anything, and that is when you trade your fish, any combination that applies, for one of these cards here and resolve the corresponding effect, such as, again, maybe getting a free move, and so on and so forth. So that is pretty much the idea. Players will continue charting courses, sailing, fishing, preserving fishes, getting possibly extra time and or extra actions. And once both players cannot do anything anymore in a round or decide to end the round, then the round is over. You draw another card to start the next round, so giving players the corresponding tiles. And you continue like this until at the end of turn 6, or round 6, you determine the winner based on the number of victory points. This is a game that I found okay. I can't say that I loved it, but my wife did. She really liked it also. She wins. So maybe that has something to do with it. It is a game that I wish it was a little simpler or a little harder, a little longer or a little shorter. There's too much stuff going on when you're teaching the game and setting it up and playing itself for this to be a filler, but at the same time also it doesn't feel like a full thing. It feels like when the game is over, I feel like that's maybe like half or 2/3 of what should be a bigger game, but actually by then you started planning for the end game, because by then a lot of the fish has been fished, and so you started landing your ships and stuff like that. Just kind of like a weirdness of, I don't know how much engagement it requires, which is in a weird space between filler and light game that I'm not quite sure that I like too much. But again, that's subjective because my wife likes it. Also, my wife likes winning. And here there's something that I would say, even if I was the one winning regularly, the game seems to lack an element of rubber banding. I have the feeling that if you gain an early advantage, it is very hard for the other player to catch up. And with two players games, so that is particularly important, precisely because, well, I can't count on the help of another player to catch up to the leader. The game has to give me those mechanisms. And if you catch some fish early on and the rewards that you get are extra time, then you gain an advantage. And what happens there? What happens that the other player is left behind and with empty sea or with less fish to catch, and so they may just never be able to catch up to you. So that's something to take into account. If the game was a 10-minute filler, I would say not much of a problem. Play it 5-6 times in an hour and see, who wins 3 out of 5 or 6 out of 10, for example. Here again, we get to a point where we play it once, you play it twice, and you feel that maybe that's enough time that you have for that to play with your spouse session there. But that's where some rubber banding would have been nice, because again, you can't just, it's not like you're going to have a tournament and see, 3 out of 5. But again, in any case, if around turn 4 or round 4, you get a sense that you are lagging behind and you don't have much of a chance to catch up, that's just a little less interesting. Maybe again, experimenting with different setups, with different combination of things on the board. But again, there's still the problem is you catch fish early, you're depleting that area, and if you get extra hours that way, you get a chance of moving forward even more and that's to me that's a problem. So this is my assessment of Fisheries of Gloucester.